welcome Sukaran. Thank you
Hello.
for coming to
Hi.
tell me about it. Hi, I'm going to introduce you in very glowing terms now. So the whole idea is to talk about you guys in a way that kind of builds you up, so that then we'll have fun later. So so,
That
so
just again, you just that sounds so dangerous, but sure. Okay, let's go with
uh,
that.
so no. So the reason, okay. So first of all, this is episode 13. I didn't think that we are going to last this long, but we've been really getting a lot of interesting people, and we started in the lockdown doing this, and we kind of started understanding that this is a fantastic way of learning for a lot of people, because when we are getting industry experts and when we are getting them to talk about a topic rather than anything else and just get deep dive into that topic, it becomes fun. I mean, of course, you can go here and there a little, but the whole idea should be to, have a deeper understanding and learning about the topic. So let's talk about Sukaran first. Sukaran, I met when he was trying to jog in Mica. He was jogging very, very slowly, but it was fun to watch. So then I realized that behind that jogging person is also a friend of mine. So I thought that he is a welcome addition to the faculty at Mica. He's an adjunct professor, which is fantastic. Welcome Sukaran to Mica. So that was great. Sukaran also is a Mican, and he has many other Mican connections, which I will not get into for the paucity of time. But what we shall do is we shall look into what Sukaran has done. So after working in the corporate world, and I'm not, you guys can go to his LinkedIn profile. I'm going to talk about the main thing, right? So has been he shifted rather from the corporate world to starting his own startup. And what's it called, Sukaran? Ice.
It's called Ice Studios. Yes.
Interesting. Ice. Okay,
Yeah.
so ice it is. And for somebody who's worked with, something like Wills and moving to ice is interesting. And we will talk a little bit about your journey. But he's done a startup. He's also a director in, a fancy hotel chain somewhere up in the Himalayas, where he's speaking from. So I'm extremely jealous, right?
You're very welcome here, Siddharth. So that's the plan too. By the end of this, I'm hoping you're gonna pop out and come here.
Well, anyway, Sukaran, welcome to the show. And Akash, fantastic man. I mean, I saw your LinkedIn profile and I got, I have always wanted to meet one of those growth hackers in real life. Well, I'm not meeting anyone in real life, but at least virtual life mein to mil gaya yaar. So the whole
Sure.
thing is that, what I find really interesting about your profile is that you are a growth hacker, certainly, and one of the few people that can legit actually say that they are a growth hacker. So that's great. And you're somebody who's also in the world of media, and you've been in an agency and media. So that is a
Sure.
very combination, because when you're looking at terms like acquisition and stuff like that, you've not only acquired customers, you've acquired users as well,
Sure.
and so on and so forth. So it will be really interesting to talk to you about your journey, Akash, and understand how you come to land on this side of the fence, really, in the sense of a media person,
Yeah.
really.
Sure. Sure.
So welcome to the show, and
Thank you.
we'll
Thank you so much, Siddharth.
fun having this conversation. I'm going to shut up after just introducing the topic. After that, it's just you guys, man. So my job is damn easy. So here we go. The topic is growth hacking. Now, the reason why I've called both of you guys is actually you're kind of diametrically opposite to each other. Now, if you look at Akash, you are certainly somebody who is the quintessential growth hacker. And if you look at Sukaran, he comes from a branding, semiotics, cultural background, which comes from, a very different perspective. So I thought that we might actually end up having a very nuanced and detailed discussion on the topic of growth hacking and how do you guys see it growing. And it's quite possible that, you might agree to disagree on certain topics or certain subtopics, or you might actually add value to each other's points. So I'm looking forward to a lot of that happening. Right.
Great.
I also have a bunch of notes which I frighten my potential guests with, and start asking questions from the notes and start ticking it off. But let me start this topic by asking Akash this question: like, how do people look at you, man? When they say, "Oh, this guy is a growth hacker," how do people actually look at you?
So, to
You
put
understand?
in,
You
right.
get, there must be some strange look guys like, oh, this guy can perform magic or voodoo or something like
Definitely not nerdy,
that?
but something that I really, you know, plan to change in a conversation is by converting statements to facts.
Mhm.
Now, for example, if there's a brand getting launched tomorrow in, say, the HSM market of India, this is a statement. A brand launching with the potential to maybe do 30% better in the HSM market compared to the other market and the APAC region. This becomes a fact. So, but converting statements using facts and figures and past learnings and data to curate brand journeys is something what people look for when they talk to me, or when I initiate a conversation, or if we are speaking of a brand launch or a specific vertical in the market. This is what I bring in front of them. This is what I bring to the plate.
So when you're bringing this to the plate, sorry, I'm going to push you a little more on that.
Sure.
So when you're bringing this to the plate, do they look at you as, Sala, ye to numbers laega?
Right. So the end of the day, everybody needs this. Now, over the period of for the past couple of years, and in fact, even right now, we have had different setups. We have one setup which looks after the brand, which looks after the quality of the brand, how the brand is positioned in consumers' mind. And this other part which goes parallel to it ensures that anybody who converts as a user comes with a very long lifetime value. So if I'm spending $100 to acquire a consumer, and if he's dropping off in, say, about a week and going to some other platform, it's just a losing situation for me. If I acquire a consumer who for whom I spent maybe $200, twice than what I spent for the consumer I spent earlier, but he stays with me for, say, about the next 10 years, and he's going to give me a lot of revenue. So this is what like we as marketers are looking at, and this is what I looked at for my brands when I was working for an agency.
That's interesting, and you kind of he's doing preemptive strikes, Sukaran. So he knew I was going to ask him about, okay.
I saw that, yeah. So what was interesting to me, and I hope you're going to pick him on that, is that I love that he's calling himself a marketeer, not a growth hacker. And that's something I have a feeling, is there a note in your diary there? But yeah.
Trust me, it's all going in there. It's all going in there. But coming back to Sukaran now, okay? Yeah. Sukaran, now you've heard what Akash is saying. So what I wanted you to do is give me a different perspective from your, own point of view about growth hacking and what it means to you as a somebody who's like coming in from a complete left field, right? You're not perhaps going to look at the definition that Akash used about growth hacking, which is about, looking at maybe facts and evidence, converting everything into evidence. How do you see it?
So, to be very, very honest, the first time I encountered the term, and the term is just 5 years old in itself. So the first time I heard of it, I was like, wow, I really don't know what's happening around us, right? Like, what is this new thing, growth hacking? Because just like there are so many HBRSN Select members on LinkedIn now, there's so many people who write growth hacking, and it's a very new term in that sense. In my understanding of it has always been that, and of course Akash can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is it's somebody who is driven by growth and pushing the organization ahead in terms of acquiring the right amount of base or growing that base, and doing that without having to resort to burning a massive hole in the bank. The whole idea of resort to creativity, resort to low cost ideas, resort to virality, word of mouth, stuff like that, to kind of accelerate the acquisition of the organization. That is how I look at growth hacking. So
interesting. By the way, growth hacking started in 2010, so it's like 2020, man. So it's like 10 years.
Maybe it's the term, Siddharth, what I feel has been curated right now. But I was like a couple of months back, I came across this article in 1950, I think. McDonald's came up with a strategy that they should have their hoardings on all the freeways, on the exits of the freeways. Now, understanding that there's going to be a lot of traffic which is going to stop there and look at their hoarding, I think it's growth hacking.
Yeah,
Not necessarily it has to be on the computer,
that's it.
but you understand traffic, you utilize it to your advantage. That's growth hacking.
So, okay, this was not on the list, but I'm going to ask you. Do you think it's really do you think it's just a cool term? And actually, this is just part of normal marketing strategy? Because if you say yes, we will go down one route. If you say no,
Sure. Personally, I feel there have been a lot of changes happening around us. A couple of years back, if you just meet a couple of people who are currently part of maybe India's top brands, they
yeah,
had teams of maybe 4 to 5 people. That's it. The
yeah,
same person would look after acquisition, analytics, data, everything. Today, we have a extremely diversified variety of marketing around us. Uh,
right,
App tracking, consumer growth, acquisition, retention, multiple types of retention. So it is necessary to break it down, as Sukran was saying, that somebody who would bring the organization to a pace without burning up the maybe the balance which the brand has. Now this is definitely something which is not maybe definitely a brand marketer would definitely know how to work around this, but he might not specialize into it.
mm,
So guys who have been into analytics, who have been into maybe understanding consumer journeys, they spend a lot of time to understand at what level does a user drop off. If you as a consumer went till the add to cart page of maybe say Flipkart or Myntra, but did not purchase,
yeah,
what was that one thing that made you drop off? And there's a huge analysis behind that.
yeah,
So it's a cool term. It's a cool term that sets you apart and gets you up a couple of pounds in pocket. But for sure, that's a part of normal brand analysis, I feel.
Sorry, so but I want to go back to Sukaran because I kind of let him off the hook a little easier there.
Oh no.
What I wanted to ask was, if you look at your understanding of growth hacking, I think it's bang on. I don't think it is in opposition to whatever Akash is saying, but I just want to push you a little more about, let's say, brand building on one side and sales growth on the other. And we all say that brand building contributes to sales growth and the rest of it, but we know that in real life, okay, there's actual maramari, there's actual tension that happens, right, between so what's your view on it? Why do you think it happens? Why do you think, what can be done to stop something like this? Because you've now shifted to the other side and you know that it's a stupid, futile thing.
So actually, before that, I want to add one small thing to Akash's point. I don't want to interrupt him then, but I think one very important thing, especially when you're talking about McDonald's, was the fact that today so much of marketing is happening online, and so many one of the industries that has the easiest way to enter growth hacking are industries that are scalable, right? So, and which is the digital avenue. So I think that's why the term today kind of shifted into the whole digital sphere. But he's
Yeah.
absolutely right. Like, you could be doing growth marketing or growth hacking for something that's sold online, that is for, let's say, fast food joint, right? So, because when I look at the kind of things that we were doing, let's say at L'Oreal or at ITC,
Yeah.
I see a lot of that, at the end of the day, everybody wants a big customer base and they don't want to spend for it. That's the heart and soul of what they would want you to deliver any which way. And like you very rightly said, that I think the only people I've ever had an argument or fought or wanted to hold by the collar in an organization are only salespeople, and they've done the same to me. So
Correct.
because marketing and sales are always at that, at the opposing ends. And I've been very lucky to have been shifting between the two. So I was a regional manager for retail with L'Oreal, and then I moved back into marketing. So, you see that this is what people sitting at the head office think is going to happen when they say something, and that's what's actually going to happen. Then I moved back into marketing with ITC as well. And you realize that, yes, marketing is supposed to bring people to the door, and therefore it is your job to get that base. And then, sales is the one who has to convert it.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, that was considered good enough, right? I got you somebody at the door. But we have intelligent people on both sides of the spectrum now, and they will come and they'll tell you that, no, you got me a guy, but you didn't get me the right guy. right? I was just studying about it just a few days ago about the quality of a lead, right? Like you prioritize leads on the basis of, I was studying a case study where the organization decided certain leads would be given an actual person to follow up and certain leads should just get an email and say that this is what we do, would you be interested?
Right.
Now, for an organization that has a brick and mortar store and you have somebody walking in, we would fight and say you misreport, footfall, for example. And so we'll install a machine that counts it because we send people through. And they'd be like, yeah, but you sent the wrong kind of person to our store. So I think that's a very important nuance of growth hacking, which again, and I completely agree with Akash, that there is so much data behind that. There's so much insight that goes and so much thinking to do. We were very lucky at ITC. At Wills, we run a loyalty program called Club ITC. And while I won't share the share of customers that came from, but a very huge share of our revenue base came from that Club ITC base. So we had a lot of data. And the sheer potential available in that data to be able to figure out who buys when, for what kind of an occasion, and therefore who to be called for what kind of product launch. That for me is growth hacking. You get the right people and you continue growing that base. So I think that's the only way to also make sales happy, that you get the right people to the door.
That's interesting. Yes, Akash, you wanted to say something?
No.
Okay, I heard.
I was just too much into what Subran was saying that I went into that entire phase.
Okay, so let's get you back to reality, right? You did say something about acquisition and retention, right? Now, that's a bit like the brand building versus sales sort of thing, which is, I know that you said that you need to get the kind of customers that you can, build a longer time relationship with. Right. And it's great as long as you don't have the pressure of numbers down your neck.
Sure.
How do you deal with something like this?
Interesting question. So there's always a balance, and that balance basically changes basis the requirement that the brand has.
Yeah.
Exactly mentioned. Like that's why I was so glued. This is the exact scenario which Subran was explaining us. That how do you acquire a bunch of people and they basically they don't carry any worth if they're not able to convert. Like, let me give you a very quick example. Yeah. For example, I have an app, and on my app, 10% of the content is available for the viewers to watch for free, and 90% of the content is basically subscribed. Now, if my goal is to get people on the app, maybe after say a month or two, I'll just be having people who just watch the free content and they might just drop off. If I get half the number of people who came to watch the free content and convert them to watch the subscribed content, I'm absolutely in good profits. So that balance has to be maintained always. Like your acquisition and retention go hand in hand. To give you a very basic, very, very basic percentage ratio for anybody to understand, brands generally go ahead with a 60-40 ratio. 60% of the spends generally go after acquisition, 40% after retargeting or retention to maintain the retention. And that helps you bring in a huge chunk of people, engage them into regular activities through your CRM, through your retargeting, through your campaigns, through your emailers, messages, maybe calling or something, and then you convert them into users. So it's always a balance is what I feel.
That's so interesting. Now, I wanted to maybe, so just for the listeners out there, I wanted to make it real for them. So I wanted to kind of understand how you guys would approach a growth hacking project, let's say. And so I'll give you an example which maybe has got nothing to do with, let's say, your startup, or, where you're working in the media field, and throw something at you and say, okay, so how will a person who knows growth hacking work their minds around a problem like this? How will they think, right? Because that is actually what is important and brings us to the heart of the matter. So let's say that you can take your call. There are many ed tech and gaming startups. Yeah. I want you in your mind to any which one, ed tech or gaming. Yeah. And just say, okay, so I've been mandated with actually developing a growth hacking strategy for this. How would you approach this problem? How would you think about it? What would you do? And Yeah, just talk us through the thinking.
If you don't mind, actually, because I'll probably give Akash some time to come up with an answer while telling you a completely unrelated story. But when we were having this last discussion, I was like,
you guys are playing me.
no, we would never. No, but when Akash was just talking about the quality of how can you convert someone, I was instantly transported about 4 or 5 years ago. I was in Goa. Completely unplanned trip, and a few friends of mine and I, we are at a hotel, and we say, hey, we want a room, and they say the room is for 8,000 rupees. We're like, no, we checked on Make My Trip, it's for 6,000 rupees. So the woman there at the reception, she's like, go ahead, book it then, right? I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm from the hospitality industry, right? So I am aware of the fact that there is this much cut that goes to the OTA. And I was like, what are you saying? Like, I'll pay you directly, give me a better rate. She's like, no, you book it online. So I was like, fine. I booked it online, only to find that while I paid 6,000 on my credit card, she immediately turned around and showed me the screen and said, look, I got a meal for 7,000 rupees. So, and I was like, what just happened here, right? And you understand that this is what, and in the industry, they call it the burn, right? That to get massive acquisition and therefore, get a big base, they're burning, and I call it like hidden socialism, right? All the rich people and investors sitting in China having to pump their money back so we can go vacation, better hotels. And I see that and I realize that, which is why I think it's very important what Akash was saying, that it's not just a term and there has to be this thought that goes behind it. Because if you just connect it to numbers, there are so many ways to deliver those numbers. And I would never become loyal to that app, right? There's so many people that try to acquire customers by just giving a coupon and say, once they get, and they say that we got the space.
I think it goes with also trying to become an influencer nowadays. So building a brand, same shit, man. Same shit.
True, absolutely. And with that, I'll let now Akash talk about EdTech.
I'm gonna pick mobile gaming.
Okay. All right. Mobile gaming?
Yeah, so I'm definitely okay. Like I would want to go ahead with mobile gaming first, but I would also want to speak on EdTech in the end, little bit.
Okay. All right.
So mobile gaming specifically, an industry which just maybe came out of nowhere. In terms of specific, in the past 1.5 2 years, this has just boomed. If I speak of mobile gaming, there have been multiple segments. There have been real money gaming. There has been a lot of fantasy sport around that. At a point in time, we just knew of Dream 11. Today we have MPL, we have My Circle 11. And many various multiple. We have Ludo, we have Carom. Everything is on real money. Yeah. We have even normal games in mobile gaming where people engage in without maybe investing money. How growth hacking would ideally be taken in this scenario is if I have an app, say, if I have an app which has, again, every app which you find today, which you install, the moment you're installing it on an app store, you get the option while installing it that it has in-app purchases. I don't think you would find any app right now which you would want to engage in on daily basis will not have in-app purchases. That's exactly where the revenue comes from to a brand. The brand does not earn money when you install the app. It does not earn money, a lot of money when you see a specific ad. For example, if you're playing say, NFS and you have to watch a video, let's take PUBG as an example, a very well-known game. If you're playing PUBG, you watch a specific video, maybe of a specific phone, any brand. You watch the video, you get a couple of coins. The brand does not earn that ways, but how it earns is basically put in money. Every time you invest in the game. Let's take poker as an example. Every time you're putting some money in the pot, as a growth hacker, the system identifies you as a person who has the intent to invest the money. Now, it automatically identifies you and it differentiates you from the person who does not have the intent to maybe put in the money. Yeah. And every time, for example, you as a user, you're putting say 30 rupees on a daily basis for about say the next 1 month. You turn out to be a user who has extremely high lifetime value, who is going to get a lot of revenue to the brand. And they're going to segment you with other folks who are investing 30 rupees every day. The communication which comes out to you is going to be different from the communication that comes out to me if I'm putting 5 rupees every day. That is growth hack. You engage in this, you engage into communication practices, use programmatic, Google, Facebook all together as channels to curate a consumer journey basis your own intent, which you don't identify. Now, I wouldn't know why I'm getting such rich communication if I'm investing, say, 100 rupees every day. As a user, I wouldn't understand. But if I'm putting $10, I would get very normal communication.
Yeah.
So that's how growth hacking works. In mobile gaming, people cross-sell. There's a lot of cross-sell that happens in mobile gaming.
Notice what you did was to identify a couple of insights that are there for that sector. And based on that, you ask yourself that core question as to, yaar, dhanda kidhar aata hai? Okay, and what happened? Actually understand and stream together the damn thing and then say, okay, how do I actually infiltrate it? So that's what I said, right? You were going to say something as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure. Who are you asking right now?
Sorry, I'm Akash was going to actually talk. And then this is a strange interface. So when I think I'm looking at Akash, I'm looking at Sukaran. So it's just
you have just seen Dark on Netflix a couple of days back.
We don't want to be there.
So EdTech specifically as an industry, I've handled a couple of brands in EdTech. And how EdTech has come up in terms of growth hacking or marketing has been phenomenal. There are apps today which understand users on a specific, on a specific view. For example, if I stopped on a specific page for too long and I'm still scrolling on the same page, there is a mechanism to track that. Now, just understand how well can I target my audience? How well can I target my users if I understand their preference? Today, speaking of AI, which Google, Facebook, programmatic use in terms of their campaigns, again, I would go back to communication again and again because I feel that is one major thing that drives the entire business.
So let me stop you there and ask you this question. Say, suppose Sukaran and I decide that we are going to start a course together.
Sure.
Okay. And now we want to get enough students to go for that course because you know that shit is happening too.
Sure. Yeah.
What advice would you give us as a growth hacker to make sure that we succeed?
First of all, you are entering into a space which has already been dominated by something for free that is called YouTube.
Correct.
You have to make sure that your content, number one, has superb. Now, when I say content, for example,
it's all going to be good, man.
I'm you getting us free consulting, so why not, right?
So for example, if my content, I don't have much to play around the content, I'm going to curate an experience or change the way that content looks to the person. For example, if India got independence in 1947, this fact cannot be changed. It depends on me how I show this specific ad. If this is how your course is going to look, it depends on me on how I would want to show this ad in Tamil Nadu, how I would want to show this ad in UP, how I would want to show this ad in Gujarat. Now, say my campaigns are running and I've got ample users who are glued to the course and are interested to go ahead and pursue your course and would want to consume the content. Once these guys are on your apps, there's a mechanism that tracks their activities in the apps. With the help of an SDK, software development kit. It helps you track on where your users are, how many times have they opened the app, how many times have they paid for something, and then again, as marketers, you would want to segment them into various pieces, and then you retarget them. That's how your attention is balanced along with their acquisition.
Okay, so you think retarget is quite important in this case?
Absolutely. Any person who is coming to consume some content on your EdTech platform definitely is going to also go on Google, read more about it. He's going to go on YouTube. He's going to speak to his friends. He's going to refer your competitors. Okay. And at that point of time, it becomes important to you. It becomes important for you to keep him glued to your app. Because if he bounces off, it's just like cooking. For example, if I'm assuming you would cook a brilliant butter chicken at a specific place. If somebody is glued to the taste that you are offering them, irrespective of what facilities you have, irrespective of what ambience do you have, that person is going to come back to you again and again. It's all about curating experiences.
Are you an early dinner eater or something?
No, but I did see you. I did see.
You're making me hungry. Okay.
Actually, I want to quickly add a little bit to that, if that's okay.
We have all the time in the world. Aram se.
Cool. No, very important part, and I was working when I was with L'Oreal. I was doing a little project called Beauty Brain with a global digital hub. And the example I used to pitch my idea, and I say everybody should try this out to realize how creepy the internet is. Open an incognito tab and open your normal. So you have two windows. Open Google on both of them. Search for video games on one. Search for pop music on one. All right. And after that, open another tab on both of them and search. Just type call on both the windows. Where you search for a video game, your autocorrect suggestion will be Call of Duty. Where you search for pop music, your autocorrect suggestion will be Call Me Maybe. All right. And I used to show this and say that people love Google to search. It's not just because you get a good result. It's because you get a good result every time, and you feel, you know what, this thing always gets what I want. And I was like, if you want to get people onto a platform, we were that time trying to see how can we really change the way makeup is bought online, right? And makeup is sold at stores using someone called a beauty advisor who looks at you and knows that, this is your skin tone, so this color lipstick will work better for you, that foundation will work better for you. Now, how do I get that to happen online? And what Akash was talking about, this was the exact same thing that we proposed, that see what shades do they hover over, not what they click, but where did the mouse stay for 3 milliseconds more than the other, and start building an intelligent profile. Nice. So this is what we were proposing. And now now that data laws are such that you can actually download the data that, let's say, Facebook and Google has on you, many people have that moment of, oh my God, what the hell just happened here? Because it's recorded voice clips, it's understood everything that you do, where you went, everything. And the kind of profile they have built on you, it is so usable for an advertiser. Now, I'm not getting into the ethics and morality of it, but from just purely a marketing standpoint, something as basic as a
You're saying my marketing and ethics are got nothing to do with
it. So, but I would highly push what he's calling retargeting. Akash called retargeting. Like on Facebook, there's something called lookalike audience, right? You literally just upload 100 email addresses of people who are already consuming your product, and you leave it to Facebook to figure out what is similar amongst all those 100 people. And Facebook will use this 10,000 variables to find out these are the things that are common. Now I'm going to find 10 million other people who have these things in common, and that'll be your audience. And it is retargeting, but using the power of big data, internet, everything. So.
Interesting. But Sukaran, you haven't answered my question to you, which is like, how would you think about any strategy, right? So take anything. So what I'm interested in knowing is, how would you think about, from what I got from Akash's, all the wonderful stuff about where the dhanda happens and all of that, which is brilliant. So anything to add to that?
So I'll give a disclaimer before I start off, because I was living with a guy who has a startup in the edtech space. So I'll be sharing some of the conversations I've had with him in this regard, and a Mikan at that, by the way. But so the first thing, and I think Akash started off with that you need a really good product. You cannot pack shit up with a bow on top and hope it'll sell. It just does not work. A really good product. And if you want to go in for the whole growth hacking bit, wherein we're saying, I'm not spending $100,000 on ad money. It's all about engaging the audience and trusting the word of mouth. So you're building a system that is so robust. So this startup, for example, is to inculcate reading amongst kindergarten students. That's the very niche thing that they have. But they're like, we want to build a nation of readers, and this is what we're going to work towards. And you have to see that app. It is so engaging. It is gamified. It is something it's got a lot of shareability to it. So automatically, when you're having fun on it, you want to show others. There's a leaderboard. So, if two people are there, they're like, oh, you're not there on it. And you're getting other people on board. So a lot of it has to do with having shareability to it, which is something that if I were to build a strategy for, let's say, edtech, while like Akash said, the first thing is content and the quality of your product. But I think it's really important, and I would love for actually I read something and I totally disagreed with it, which was that target everyone. That you want to do growth hacking, target everybody. That's what Airbnb did, and I was like, no. I personally believe that it's super important to understand the persona of the kind of person you want to work with. Because you cannot be for everyone. I say, something as basic as water, where a vein, and you also have a tau, which is volcanic water, and you cry when you pay for it because it's a 1100 rupee bottle of water. Yeah. So even something like that has such a massive range. So you cannot be for everyone. Yeah. So I say, get great product, find the right audience, and then use the power of word of mouth, virality, shareability, analytics, and then kind of just like bombard them with it, and then hope that it sticks. That's how I would go about it.
Wonderful, thank you. I think both of them were very good, and they kind of added to each other, which is fantastic as well. Now here's I'm going to give a little preamble to the next question I've got. Normally VP marketing swaggers about when that VP marketing ka budget badhta hai. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, a growth hacker is known for the exact opposite thing. Yeah. Right? So I'm utilizing itna chota paisa, but I'm delivering such big results. Now, I believe that is actually what should happen to a VP marketing as well. He has to actually look at impact. How does a hacker fit into the whole ecosystem of marketing, where that is coming from a very different place? And maybe Sukaran, you can have a think about it. But what I'm saying is that if you are looking at growth hacking, it comes from a software perspective: test fast, test hard, understand, go back, A/B testing, all of that, right? And then you have this state marketing, storytelling, this, that, and the other, which is kind of slow and kind of like, we need a big budget. Okay.
Sure. So I'm so happy that I'll again say this is not planted, because I'm so happy you asked me this, because I've been in this situation. Because I work with apparel, and anybody who ties up with fashion a little bit will know there are two seasons that come out. India does not actually have spring and autumn. We just have spring, summer, and autumn, winter. We just bunch it up together, right? So there are two big seasons that happen in the year from a fashion house perspective. Right. And the collection is launched, and then there is the end of season sale. That's how it works. So you have two big things in the whole year, which means you have two big budgets, spend it. We, to change that, to flip that model entirely around, had launched at iWills a collection called the Elements. All right. And so we picked the four elements: earth, water, fire, air. And we were like, we're going to launch a collection every 3 months, 2 months. Every 2 months, we're going to launch a collection and push it out. And the idea is it's limited edition. It's only in the store for like the 30 days that it lasts. And whatever people say has to be immediately fed back into the loop. Yeah. So we built it as a model called the Continuous Innovation Protocol, and we like branded it internally very nicely. But when I look back at it, and I look at it from the context of, the discussion on growth hacking, that was the sort of, honestly, that was the entry point for us to decide that this is the direction in which Wills will be reimagined for the future. Mm-hmm. So that was where we got the next, 10,000 customers, because for a store to get 10,000 new footfall, the single store, that's huge. But that's where it was driving that, bring in something new, see how the market reacts to it, and quickly pump it back. And because it was so experimental in nature, there was no ATL. The whole idea of big budget for a VP actually its heart is in ATL, right? That, I ran a campaign worth 100 crores or 20, 50 crores, because you're going to spend that on TV or news. But today, with this whole flipping of one, like what we did there, that advertise only on the internet, only on Instagram ad, only on YouTube pre-roll videos, where you have the ability to target really the right person. So like, eventually that collection led into something called Fabrics of India. So like something like a Kantha. Now, I know not everybody would be interested in a Kantha, but the power of the internet allows me to really target the few people who like Kantha, and I can bombard them that, look, I made Kantha. And that really worked for us. So I think if I got the question that you were saying, right, that yes, traditional marketing was always around kitna paisa tumne kharcha. But I think that the future direction is very clear that, how smartly are you spending? And especially today, where companies are actually shutting their offices down, saying I can save that money also. Why the hell will I? So we're in a completely strange loop entirely. Yeah.
Changed up scenario. Akash, would you want to quickly add to this? And because I've got a even more interesting question.
But that definitely helps me understand I've got a very bright future with what Sukaran has explained us. Bringing down, absolutely bang on. Whatever he said is absolutely right. Today, there was a time when you needed budgets basically to get people who could think. For example, if I'm launching my ad on a TV, it's a TV ad. I would want people to think how that entire experience should be for my users, because I generally am not available on digital. Say, for example, for a brand, if I'm not available on digital, but if a brand which is available on digital, exactly how Sukran was explaining, you have the ability to target a person basis his interest, basis his past purchases and his past experiences. Now,
Absolutely.
I was shocked to know when I got to know this was a report laid out by an e-commerce company that 95 or 90% of the times when people buy a pen drive, after that, their next purchase is, or in maybe a couple of months, they do purchase a white colored T-shirt. Now, who on earth can think of that without using artificial intelligence or Facebook's or Google's algorithms? It's impossible. You can't just think. Somebody would have been just thrown out of the office if I would have gone and said that let's sell him a white T-shirt. He bought a pen drive.
Or
But
maybe
this is what data.
Man, I don't know.
But this is what data says. Like you would never know, you would never understand users would convert, and that is exactly where this sweet spot is. You are using your money efficiently. Today, you launch movies for say 40-50 crores when you have such humongous budgets. But yes, there is an ask to, like it's said, no, that तुझे गोली का नहीं देना पड़ेगा हिसाब, मुझे हर गोली का हिसाब देना पड़ता है in police. So it's like that. For every money that you have spent, what are you getting back on table?
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Here's a follow-up question to you, or rather not. I just want to take it to a different place now. You talked of something. I think Sukaran was talking of burn, but I wanted to ask you this first because you might have seen this. Okay, so what Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point. So where you've kind of done everything and it kind of goes beyond that 10 to 13% and shit takes off. Okay, so what I wanted to figure out is that in your entire bag of tricks as a growth marketer, what do you think typically has done the trick of crossing that chasm?
Understanding. Yeah, I understood your question. If I go anywhere apart from the right answer, just stop me. I think in terms of that specific trick that should be universally acceptable by all the growth marketers or growth hackers or digital marketers is understanding the right audience. Even if it's an acquisition campaign or it's a retargeting campaign, understanding the right audience. There was a theory a couple of years back that just bombard your audience with your ads. I wouldn't name the brand because I've worked with it. But there was this brand which came up by bombarding you on your YouTube videos a couple of years back. Every video
getting some German guy talking to me on my YouTube, man. Some German guy, I don't even know German.
Yes. Exactly, that happens. I see properties of Dubai and I'm like, okay, there's something very wrong with your campaigns and I need to go, I need to consult you. Let's stop doing this, guy. So but there was this brand which bombarded its users and they were and virality just took off. People were not happy with that. You have to have a very controlled frequency of your ads because you wouldn't want to disrupt this. For example, let me take a very basic example of a traditional kirana wala. There's a kirana wala right outside your house. Every day you come from office, that kirana wala tells you, "Bhaiya parle ji le lo, bhaiya parle ji le lo." Every single day, you would just save your ass. You would go back home. Like that's what happens. You want to have a controlled frequency because you would want to curate that experience around the user. And that is why I feel audience and understanding the kind of audience is something that pulls off the trick and takes you from a 10% profit to maybe an 80% profit. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. In fact,
I'm actually going to write this one down for that. I'm just going to write this one down, and next time somebody says we need more frequency, I'll say Bhaiya ji parle ji, because that it hit so hard. Like, oh my god! Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, sorry.
So no, anything to add to that? This 10 to 13%. I'll give you my view. I think it's very aligned to what the audience thing is. Here's what I feel, and maybe you can riff off that. I actually feel that if you target the right kind of audience, okay, which means that people who are also organically going to talk about your product or service on their own, and who also have a bit of an influencer element to it, it kind of pushes you across the chasm. Faster. And I think that's probably one of the fantastic areas that magic happens. Just an observation from whatever shit I've seen in this area. What do you feel, Sukaran?
Honestly, and I have this theory that I try to, and it's actually I should just call it a hypothesis because there's no way I have been able to ever test this out. But what I believe and how I try to justify all of this is that biologically, you and I, we are still where we were 200,000 years ago, evolutionarily, right? And sociologically, we are completely in a different environment.
Yes.
And which is why I say that, people aren't geared to understand brands. People are geared to understand people. And for the longest time, brands have a persona in your mind. So it exists as a person. And therefore, there are some brands you want to be friends with and some brands you don't want to be friends with. So you can have an Android and an Apple guy together and have them argue about, my feature came first and yours is not as cool. But the truth is that they will stick to what they like regardless of the logic you give them. Because you just sometimes like certain people. And I just think it's about expanding that idea that you are, your brand exists as a person. Therefore, there's certain kind of people that you work better with. Find those people and then talk to them in the language they actually want to be spoken to. And it needs so much, sometimes just basic common sense and not even intelligence per se, but like, for us, I remember we were discussing whether we want to launch this suit, which was about 10x our average price. Okay, so it's a blazer, but it's 10x the price because it was really high quality. And we were like, will this ever work? And the only reason we went with it was because we saw our data and we saw that there were these about 11% of our audience, the Club ITC audience, used to buy shirts every month, which meant the amount of money that they were spending at our store was disproportionately large. And he said, let's just target them.
We lost you for 10 seconds. So
I got it. So, what we eventually are doing is you're taking the right message to the right audience and speaking them in the right language. And that is all it took. And it worked so well and nobody would have anticipated. Just like Akash said, no, if you had said, I want to sell, a white t-shirt, you would say, what? That doesn't make any sense. But it was the same thing for us. We came with a 10x price point and said, what? Nobody would buy that much, spend that much at a Will store. But it did because there were people who said, no, we trust this brand. I've been buying it for 10 years. So that it's so important to understand your own brand from that persona perspective and kind of build up from there into who are you talking to and then kind of fine tune that messaging. So right message, right frequency. Like you said, I'm gonna remember that frequency example for life now. But yeah, right message, right frequency, right audience. There is no way that will not work. And I think that is what that final nudge is.
Very interesting. Thanks. I think that this probably has been a very insightful thing for me. You guys have yacked away in such a way that I'm going to find it difficult to ask those googlies, but don't count me out. I'm going to still ask you. But before that, I wanted to ask a more relevant question from an audience perspective. If you had to tell someone who says, hey, I'm really interested in becoming a growth hacker, okay? Both of you, right? So maybe Akash can go first. What are the skills you'll say, hey, do this, right? So 5 things.
Sure. But first of all, I'll break the myth. There's a very well-known myth of growth hackers or people who are into growth need to be very sound with analytics, maths. I want to, because I am sure there's a very vast audience that's going to look at this video. I come from a very average, academic background and a commerce student. And I was a person who would just hide RD Sharma under the mattress so that my parents don't find it, and that has been truth. But it's all about marketing and understanding brands. When I understood how uh, I would see a consumer drop off at different levels and understand all these percentages, I loved those numbers. I loved understanding that analytical journey of a user. So number one, if you have to be somebody who would want to go ahead by understanding growth, or who wants to understand how you would want to go or make a future into this thing, or make a career, you need to understand that there was a time when campaigns were built. Even today we call them campaigns.
Yeah.
But I personally feel, and I might be wrong, and people might question me. I personally feel that gone are the days when we used to have campaigns. Now we need to have conversations with the users.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
So if I have the data, if I know what you like, for example, if you like, say, apparel of black, I wouldn't show you an ad which would always say buy, shop now. I'm gonna just put out a communication for you. Hey, why don't you try this black T-shirt and just check and just walk around and see how it looks? Because I want to create a conversation with you. I don't want to create a campaign for you. So as a growth hacker, understand how users communicate with brands, understand the consumer journey, understand how you go to an e-commerce website, add something to your cart, and don't Flipkart or Myntra to come back to you and tell you that, hey, that denim you bought for 8,000 has come down to 6,000.
Yeah.
Today, people are smart. My youngest cousin uses an iPad. I got my first smartphone when I was in 11. So people have become smart. They understand how brands have started interacting.
Yeah.
So to marketers or to anybody who is planning to maybe understand growth, understand the consumer journey, understand analytics, understand how competitors basically want the space. There are products which have got a very monopolistic consumer journey. Understand how different verticals play different roles. If you start your understanding, if you start your training by understanding verticals like OTT, BFSI, NBFC, e-commerce, edtech, gaming, and then take brands,
Nice.
that'll be the right approach to learn about the market.
Thank you. Sukaran, very quickly, because I'm going to not leave you guys before I ask you the googlies.
Oh, God. So I have to speak slowly then.
Not going to work, my friend.
Okay, no, I think Akash has really covered the entirety of it. I say not just growth hacking, but, because I genuinely feel that a good marketer today has to be somebody who thinks like that. High efficiency, high acquisition. So I think everybody, and for everybody in that space, you cannot start any conversation, any strategy, any presentation, anything unless you have put yourself in the feet of the consumer, unless that's the heart of your idea. So really understanding who you're talking to is super, super important. Everything else is just a tool to help you do it better. So like you said, I agreed to that. Like I wouldn't say, disregard data or analytics. I'd say don't be afraid of it, right? You have access to so much. You don't have to blindly depend upon everything, but use that to understand the person you're talking to better. I think that's extremely important to I can see you don't want me to speak anymore, so I'm gonna.
It's an interesting thing that a Michael is saying, don't be afraid of numbers, and a commerce grad is saying that, yeah, numbers बहुत tough होते हैं. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. Okay, so googly number one, maybe I'll give it to Akash. Akash, so what I want you to do is, Sukaran has a startup, right? So what would you advise Sukaran to do? He has got an agency of sorts, right? Has got a proprietary model around the ICE premise, right? What would you advise Sukaran as far as growth hacking is concerned?
So I went through what Sukaran does, and I was going through all the projects and everything.
Like a true growth hacker.
And I personally feel that for Sukaran, 95% of the business. Now, this is a kind of business speaking specifically of ICE. This business is not dependent on volume. not at all. It's purely dependent on quality. And because the kind of stakeholders he has been involved with, the kind of projects he has been involved with, these are multi-crore projects, which and there's a lot of AI that comes into the picture. For him to maybe learn more, like maybe understand the parameters which can help him grow better. Maybe to first of all, maybe create an online community. I would say multiple channels would give him the leverage to create online community, because these are the people who have come to him for something which is not available easily in the market. This is that kind of a service. You don't find it everywhere. So create a community, try to engage the people through maybe very basic re-engagement activities or something that's going to help you increase your network. And again, I would say try to create some digital space, not just to maybe sell your product, but to let people know that something like this exists. You never know for such a service of yours who might convert in the end.
Absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic. Sukaran, here's your chance.
I want to say thank you, Siddharth, for getting me again free consulting. I'm just so happy I did this call.
You're going to pay it back. Sukaran, you've been part of a startup and you've been part of corporate life, and you've seen, I'm sure you've seen where the place where Akash works, right? If you had to give him a quid pro quo piece of consultancy advice on what he observed as a trend that he could look into, how would you actually say, hey, you know what, you may have looked into this, but have you considered? So anything that comes to mind?
I think the only thing I can add to his experience is that growth hacking has, over the last few years, and again, I'm probably just beating a dead horse because he did talk about McDonald's, but I think growth hacking for the last few years has become all about digital and scalability, and we can add more servers, or look at Uber. They don't really have any kind of cost when they increase the drivers and stuff like that. I don't think that's the ground reality anymore. Growth hacking has pervaded.
No, he's gone again. He doesn't want to give you advice, I think.
Did I freeze? I thought I froze there for a second.
Yeah, you're back. We got you back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think that it's a lot of all kinds of organizations today, whether they're brick and mortar, whether they sell online or they don't sell online. Everybody's in a place today where they're looking for that that golden mantra, that how do we scale up without having to blanket bomb, and that movement from blanket bombing to very targeted one was born in the digital space, but isn't limited there anymore. So I think that's the only thing I'd say, that all the way down to when I see campaigns running in the rural India where they have missed call campaigns and SMS campaigns, and I see something like that happening, I say, wow, that's really sharp targeting. The whole idea of great product, picking the right audience, and then targeting them sharply isn't limited just to a digital space anymore. It has a lot. It's definitely pervaded everywhere, and I think that's the only add-on I can add to it, to what he's doing right now.
That's not bad. Thank you.
No, that's absolutely bang on. That's really right. Yeah.
Okay, so we have, gentlemen, exceeded our time. Thank you so much for being here with me and contributing wonderfully well. I'm sure this has been a fantastic listening experience for everybody who's kind of tuned in. Thank you so much. All the apologies from me if I have kind of stepped on any toes or anything of that sort. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope that Akash, I get to meet you in real life.
Absolutely.
Over to Micah, and Sukaran and I will meet you. Sukaran, see you again. Painfully jog at some point of time.
I was coming back from the jogs that I'm really upset now. Next time I'm going to see you, I'm going to start running again faster. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.